They are completely missing the point. Every time I see this, they're missing the point. Hi, yeah, it's me again, and I keep seeing headlines like this or articles that are mentioning stuff like this from either some people at the BBC or people at the government, and they are completely missing the point. Have a look at the headline, look. BBC must boost digital to stand up to Netflix. Why are the BBC so concerned with standing up to Netflix? Netflix is a global provider, a global streaming service for a global audience, and the global audience are their customers, paying them from all over the world, so they have to suit all tastes and all genres, right? The BBC is the British Broadcasting Corporation, paid for by taxing the hard-working British people and serving a British audience. They're not trying to compete with Netflix. They shouldn't even be considering competing with Netflix. Not yet, maybe in the future, granted. Their nearest rival, the BBC's nearest rival, the one they need to beat consistently, is ITV, maybe Channel 4. And they can't even do that. So what chance have they got of standing up to Netflix? It makes no sense at all. They need to keep it a bit more down to earth, don't they? The BBC must boost its digital leadership if it's going to keep up with US streaming giants, says a new report. The National Audit Office says that although the broadcaster has made strides in establishing his online presence with the iPlayer, the tech was lagging behind the likes of Netflix. While Netflix has a budget of around 1.7 billion a year, the Beeb spend has dropped to 98 million. That is quite interesting though, isn't it? And that's the BBC spend just on its online offering is 98 million, whereas Netflix spend on its infrastructure, I don't think that includes the shows, at 1.7 billion a year. I think they probably spend a bit more than that. I think it's over 3 billion, their content budget yearly or something, isn't it? But just on the infrastructure and keeping the thing going and developing the market, they spend 1.7 billion a year. Now, if the BBC move everything to online, they would have 3.7 billion quid a year tomorrow, because that's how much they get from the licence fees, isn't it? And is that why the BBC are making such a push, such a big push to go online? A lot of it is cost cutting because they want to cut back radio and put it all online through BBC Sounds or your local radio and that. And the news is changing as well. And there's a lot of infrastructure involved in that. A lot of buildings, a lot of staff, and a lot of broadcast licenses as well. If they get rid of that and put it online, that's a big saving. But will that saving go on producing better content for you to be streamed down to you digitally? Or will that saving that they've made be used to be wasted on something like a head of orchestras they've never had before, because they've recently got one of them, or 7 local BBC commissioners? They've never had those before, but they got them now because they've made a few savings. Why do they, every time they save money, they spunk it off on something else rather than putting it to the thing they should be putting it to, which is programming? Because that's what you pay your license fee for, isn't it? Programming. You don't pay your license fee so you can have a BBC head of orchestras, someone on a 6-figure salary, I guess, because they won't tell me how much he earns, but let's say it's a 6-figure salary, to look after the 6 orchestras and probably around 400 musicians the BBC pays for. It makes sense. You don't see Netflix supporting 6 orchestras and having a head of orchestras, do you? No, because they have to make their own money, which means they have to look after their money. The BBC. A BBC spokesperson said, "The National Audit Office finds the BBC's digital performance is impressive, with more people coming to iPlayer, Sounds and our online services than ever before. But there is more to do. We're driving digital reforms across the organisation to provide people with the BBC content they want in the ways they want it." As we said, the BBC needs to be beating something a bit more down to earth consistently. So let's say ITV. BBC has 3.7 billion quid a year, as we said, from its licence fees, and BBC Studios turns over, I think it's 1.1 billion a year, and then they've got a few other private companies and they make a bit of money here and there. ITV turn over 1.4 billion quid a year through their own commercial activities, and look at all the stuff they're developing. They murder the BBC in many of the ratings. The BBC can't compete in a lot of stuff. And then you've got the ITVX service, which you can pay to have the ads removed, or you can watch exclusive stuff. It's better. iPlayer gets a lot of viewers, don't get me wrong, it really, really does, but ITVX is a better service. Everyone I've spoken to says ITVX is a better service. Even though you get ads in it, you can pay a couple of quid a month to remove them, right? ITV is also the majority stakeholder in BritBox. ITV are the ones moving the game forward, not the BBC. So how the hell is the BBC going to compete with Netflix if it can't even take on its nearest rival in the UK with a budget nowhere near what the BBC's have? So yeah, obviously the future of telly is streaming. And it's not going to be long before everything you watch is going to be streamed down, broadcast TV will be switched off. We know it's coming, right? But it ain't here yet. And how can it be? I've got nothing wrong with shooting for the moon, right? But if you can't take on your nearest rival, how are you going to take on the global leader? Let me know what you think about it all down in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, because that way, hopefully, I'll see you in another video again soon when I... Ta-da!